everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Well, happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy Native American Heritage Month. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Deanna Alfaro, and I work for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, also known as DCEO. We're so happy to have you today. This event was organized by the Native American Chamber of Commerce of Illinois, as well as the Central Management Services, CMS, as well as DCEO. Just some housekeeping rules real quick. During the panel, feel free to continue grabbing food. There's food in the back. If you need to use the restrooms, you'll exit through the back doors and then go down the hall to your right. There's restrooms down there that you're able to use. So thank you so much. And with no further ado, and the food, I should acknowledge, my apologies. The food is from Katapanen Kitchen, which is a Native American women-owned business catering company in Chicago. So we're so excited that she was able to cater today. I would like to introduce Andrew Johnson. Andrew is an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation. He currently serves as Executive Director of the Native American Chamber of Commerce of Illinois and President of the Cherokee Commercial Ventures. He is also the chairperson of the Illinois Native American Employment Plan Advisory Council and a member of the Business Enterprise Program Council. With no further ado, here is Andrew.
Thank you, Deanna. And just an incredible appreciation to Deanna that we've known each other for years now, and the way she supports our community, this event that she has helped put together. Thank you so very, very much. So I'd like to start off with our land acknowledgement, that we begin our gathering today by acknowledging the people and land upon which we meet. It is the location of the ancestral homelands of the people of the Council of the Three Fires, the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Odawa. It is also the home of the Ho-Chunk, Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankasha, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Sac and Fox, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, and Chickasaw nations. All have a responsibility to recognize our Native nations and to work with them as we move forward. So why do we acknowledge the land? It is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory we reside on, and a way of honoring the Indigenous peoples who have lived here and worked on this land since time immemorial. Now, what I'd like to do is introduce the moderator for our program today, Cameron Joost. She's the Assistant Director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, or DCEO. So Cameron has worked at various levels of government serving the people of the state of Illinois for 15 years. You don't look like you. That is wonderful. Most recently, she was the state director to U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth, overseeing all of the senator's offices across Illinois. Previously, she worked in Senator Durbin's office, handling constituent casework and community outreach. So Cameron, thank you so very, very much for serving as our moderator, and we'll hand it over to Cameron.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And I started when I was 5, so that makes sense. I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you to Deanna and the whole team in OE3 at DCEO for putting this together, for the folks at CMS, also for putting all this together. I'm really delighted to be here today and feel really honored to be up here with these 3 really remarkable women to hear and learn more about their leadership journeys with this group. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and read quick bios for all of our panelists today, and then I'd love to turn it over to you all to talk a little bit about yourselves and your journey in your own words. So to start, we have Kim Viju, who is the Executive Director of the Mitchell Museum of the American Indian. Kim brings over 20 years of experience working on behalf of many leading tribal organizations, federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, and private sector entities to develop and deliver culturally relevant initiatives and programming designed to improve the well-being of Native children, families, and communities. Kim is also the founder of Wolf River Consulting Group and previously served as the communications director at the U.S. Department of the Interior's Bureau of Indian Education. Kim is an enrolled member of the Oneida Nation and is a descendant of Menominee tribe of Wisconsin. I apologize. She joined the Mitchell Museum in October 2021. And then we also have Marne Smiley, who is the founder and CEO of Bumper Lanes, which is a full-service marketing and strategy firm that works with small to medium-sized companies uncovering anything that might get in the way of their growth, with a special focus on the M&A market. I love this in your bio. She is put on this planet to help businesses and people become better versions of themselves. She is also a native member of the Oto Missouri tribe. Did I get that? Okay, thank you. Near the Kansas-Oklahoma border. She is also a facilitator of the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative, the largest voice for Native Americans in the Chicago area. And is responsible on the legislative level for getting 3 bills passed in the last year to benefit the Native community, which is wonderful. That's fantastic. And finally joining us today is Shelly Tucciarelli, the Executive Director of Visionary Ventures. She has over 30 years of experience in management, training, administration, and development of affordable housing and community development. Shelly is a Native American tribal member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. She is also the president and executive director of Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation, a 501c3 Native American nonprofit with over 51% Native American board, which is working to develop the first urban Indian housing project using low-income housing tax credits. So a really remarkable group of women joining us today. Thank you all for being here. And as I said, I did brief bios for each of you, but I would love for you all just to take a minute to share with us in your own words about yourselves. So why don't we start, Kim, with you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction. I know that when we submitted bios for this, the organization where I serve as executive director was called the Mitchell Museum of the American Indian. And after 47 years, officially, on Saturday, the museum has a new name, and we thought it was important that the name represent the people who are in this area and the languages that are spoken in this region. So really proud to introduce the new name, which is Gitchigamin Indigenous Nations Museum. And we're lucky to have Andrew as our board treasurer, and Marnie's firm, Bumper Lanes, helped us with that whole process. So really great example of collaboration within this wonderful Native community. So I know the Native words are hard to pronounce. That's okay. We want people to practice and learn right along with us. So Gitchigamin means Great Lakes in Ojibwe. So Ojibwe is the largest language group in the region. And so it was a really strong representation of the people in this area and the surrounding Great Lakes. I'll pass it on to Marnie.
Hello. Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I am Marne Smiley with Bumper Lanes, but in this setting, most people probably know me as the facilitator for CAKE, which you heard the long version is Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative. And a call out that CAKE is the one that helped pass those bills. Marnie was just in the background, making sure that everyone was in the right seats at the right time, but it was definitely a huge group effort. CAKE has over 15 organizations that are part of the Native American community. So the Gitchigamin Museum is one of the members. Visionary Ventures is a member. Native American Chamber of Commerce is a member of CAKE. So CAKE is just a collective of all these beautiful people and their voices coming together, for better or for worse. We don't always agree, but we always are trying to move the Native American voice forward. So I'll pass this on to Shelly.
Thank you, Barney. Hello, everyone. I'm Shelly Tucciarelli, and I serve as the Executive Director for Visionary Ventures NFP Corporation. Previous to that, I worked for over 20 years with Illinois Housing Development Authority. They're the state housing agency that financed affordable housing for the entire state, and I actually managed a low-income housing tax credit program for several years, and now working on the other side, developing affordable housing. We fought over 50 years for affordable housing for our Native American community, and we're just about to close on our first project, so we're very excited.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing a little bit more about yourselves. And I would like to spend a couple of minutes diving deeper into your leadership journeys and sort of how you ended up where you are today. I think it's always really interesting because I think nobody has necessarily a linear path to where they are now or where they thought they wanted to be. So if you each could take a couple minutes and share your leadership journey, if you aspire to be where you're at now, or I know everybody has a different path to where they get to, and all of you sound like there's been a lot of things along the way that maybe have steered you in different directions. So we can start, Shelly, with you, and we'll work our way back. Just a couple of minutes about your leadership journey and how you got to where you are.
Sure. As I mentioned, I worked with the state for over 20 years, financing affordable housing. Unfortunately, we have at that time, we had no federally recognized tribal nations in Illinois, so was not able to do any housing in any of our tribal communities. So after 20 years, decided to leave and start my own company, and it was called Turtle Clan Development Services. My tribal nation is up by Green Bay, and we have the Bear Clan, the Wolf Clan, and the Turtle Clan, and my family's part of the Turtle Clan, so that resonated, and tribal nations throughout the country all have clans, so I knew that would resonate. As I was out, my goal was to do training and technical assistance in Indian country to let them know that all of these resources are available, and everyone else is using these resources, so we need to start using them in Indian country also to do housing, services, and to help find jobs for our community members. So I started the for-profit in 2013, and then as I was doing, I've done over 30 webinars with the Native Learning Center. They're the Seminoles out of Florida, and I also speak at many of their conferences, the same with the National American Indian Housing Council out of DC. I speak and do trainings for them. But as I started meeting with some of our community members here, again, been 50 years and we're still dealing with affordable housing issues in our community. So we decided we needed to start a nonprofit to start that adventure. And so what we did was started Visionary Ventures, got our 501c3, and started working with local full circle communities. I was on their board for 6 years and realized that we had very similar missions. And so joint venturing with them on this housing development. It's on 2907 West Irving Park Road, Irving in California. The reason we chose that location was because of the closeness to the American Indian Center, the Indian Health Services, and St. Kateri Center. The river, water is everything to our community. We were able to get the Pokagon Band of the Potawatomi, one of their linguists. The project is called Jezebek, and that means at the river's edge. So we're very excited about that. And I truly believe that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in this, in this journey on Earth. So I'm very happy for how the journey led me to where I am today.
Okay, hi everyone. So leadership, how we got here and what we're doing now. So my family, both of my parents were in the military. My dad was an Air Force pilot, went to the academy. My mom was an Air Force nurse. She's turning 84, so she was one of the first female nurses ever for the Air Force. So I had no choice. I was going to have to be a leader in some way, shape, or form. And I bring that up because I think being a leader is about being of service to the people around you. And if I'm going to really be a good leader, I can't be thinking about myself. And if you have a military background, you already have this heart of service. On top of it, we had 23 foster kids in and out of our homes, and I was the oldest sister every time. So once again, I was just leader by default, whether I wanted to have these kiddos running around and asking their big sister what was going on or not. I was just groomed into that position. So I feel very blessed that my family created this very unusual living circumstance between moving from place to place. We moved 5 or 6 times, and then taking up this foster family practice. It really exposed me to being a leader in a lot of different circumstances with people with very complicated pasts. They're young; they don't know that how complicated their pasts are, and I didn't really either until I'm talking about it 20 years later. So that just kind of grew me up into knowing that having this heart of servitude and hard work and wanting to bring a voice to people that don't always have a voice is always just one of the top things on my mind. In my bio, I say I want to help people become better versions of themselves, and that's exactly what it is. It's not my path, it's their path, and it's the company's path, and it's these organizations' path, and it's the Native community's path. And I just get to be the catalyst, hopefully, and the sounding board to bring those voices to the table, whether it's in a brand, whether it's in getting advocacy bills passed through the community, or whether it's in a company going through a contentious merger and acquisition. I just love being in the middle of the fight and giving people who may not normally have the voice or have the fight in them, like that's where I come in. I'm part of the Buffalo clan, and in my tribe, the Buffalo clan was traditionally the tribal leaders. It doesn't always break down like that, but that just kind of had our background. So whether or not I wanted it to be in my blood, here we are. So
I was just going to say, it's in your blood.
Yeah, exactly. I'll pass it over to Kim.
So much to follow up on. I took a very non-linear path to my role, but one thing that was consistent across like my whole childhood and professional trajectory was that at Shelly and I are Oneida, and we come from a matrilineal culture where women are the decision makers, women are the leaders, women have high expectations. So I came from a family that was very educated. My parents were the first in their community to go to college, graduate school. They became educators. They worked in higher education. And so just had this, I had this underlying, kind of confidence from my community was that, as a woman, this is your responsibility. So, we always think about that as a kind of source of pride that, women may not always have the primary leadership positions, or they might have to fight for these, for authority or a voice, but within our own communities, it's very, very different. And you'll see that here within CAKE. A lot of the organizations, almost all of them, are led by Indigenous women. I think, Andrew, are you the only one?
I didn't realize. My goodness, you're right.
Yeah. So, I always remind people like what you go to college for, what you start out in is not where you will end up. My educational background is in biology and anthropology. I did an internship on Capitol Hill in DC, and that ended up by accident being me working on behalf of tribes at the federal level in public health for about 20 years. And within that, I learned that there was this huge gap between the tribe's needs and what the public perceived as their needs, and then what resonated with the tribal communities was not resonating with the public. And so my family moved here in 2017 from DC, and I started Wolf River Consulting to continue that role, so providing a lot of tribal engagement services, outreach services. And the Mitchell Museum was one of my clients at the time, and the relationship was so positive, and we worked together so well. They offered me the position as executive director. And at that time, I thought, like, this is my work. I've always worked with tribal communities on health issues. Like, I can't give that up. But I took the leap and took the position, and it's just really been a wonderful experience. And I always remind people, like, the issues related to health and education and the assimilation policies that happen to tribal communities, they're all part of our stories. These are all part of our stories within the museum. And I feel like now my role as a leader within the museum is to uplift other Native people's voices and give them voice where they may not have had it before.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I also want to call out in all of your journeys the direct work that you've done or the influence that you've had over public service. And Marne, how you called that out specifically, that I think, public service is so crucial to how you all have been shaped into the work that you do. And I think it's especially important as we're here today talking to a lot of folks who work in public service at the state level. So I just especially wanted to call that out. And I think it's really important that, you're able to give back and serve communities, especially the communities that are closest to your heart. So I also wanted to ask about some of the lessons that you learned on your leadership journey. And I would love to hear from each of you a little bit about maybe the biggest lesson that you've learned, or a lesson that has particularly shaped any part of leadership or the work that you do. And start there. Whoever feels like they're ready to answer that question. I won't call in order anymore.
Usually talky. And by the way, don't let Kim sleep on the fact that she's not still in health, because they just got a $500,000 grant to help with healthy nutrition and bring Native food to outside of the Native community. They're gonna have a kitchen and a beautiful garden. So she's worked her way back into what she was meant to do. Not that she's not in something that she's not meant to do now, because she's amazing at it. Okay, so all the ways I screwed up, there are a lot. But I would say the two things that I take the most, and I'm constantly still learning, is to listen. And the delivery is important. There are people that add a lot of value to a lot of conversations, but the way they deliver it is just such garbage that it's hard to knock down all of that defensiveness or just like how it's coming at you. And listen, that's me sometimes too, where I have something to say and I'm going to say it and I don't care how it comes across, and that's just what I want to say. But it's not in the spirit of finding an end goal that we're all hopefully shooting for. So listening to the people around me, especially the folks that are working for me, because sometimes I can kind of lose sight of what their needs are. So once again, being a leader and listening and serving them through, like, I'm serving them because they're serving the organization. And then just being aware of how I am speaking about things that really upset me, because I can sometimes just come across too much and then it's not heard as well. And this happens in every relationship for everything, that if your delivery sucks, it's going to be really hard to listen, even if what you're saying is really, really smart and pertinent. That's it for me.
One of the main things two of the main things I'd like to say is that education really is key. And that doesn't necessarily mean college. That means learning from your surroundings, learning from your elders, and just being a good community member. So learning that is really key. And the other thing is, like Kim had said, that Oneidas, we're a matriarchal society. And so being around leadership and being around strong women is what I'm used to. So I always knew, I've always had a lot more confidence, and I didn't know why, but I guess it's because of that culture. And so being able to uplift other women and making sure that they're being heard and giving that knowledge that you have to them and making sure that they're able to succeed in life is really what I've learned over many years of working with because I've seen it in where women just try to knock each other down to get to the top, and that's just not what we should be doing.
I'm just going to second what Shelly and Marnie have brought up, and I think for me in this position at the museum, the most important thing that I remind myself and try to practice is listening. Native people have experienced a lot of harm on behalf of museums. Also, being a longtime federal employee, also experienced harm at the hands of the federal government. So I think, one, always to listen and remind yourself that everyone's experience is not universal within Native communities. It's very nuanced. We're not a homogenous culture, and so to continually remind yourself that, these experiences are very different, and the reactions that you get because of that are very different, and to practice empathy when you are engaging with Native communities might seem a little distrustful, but the understanding the reasons behind that will completely reshape your perception in the way that you engage. And then second, I think it's really important that we practice humility. I always remind myself that each of us has a different experience with our culture, level of understanding of our culture. Many of us grew up in urban areas, so we didn't have as much, or suburban areas don't have as much engagement with our reservation communities, or there are people who have been adopted or disconnected in some way. So it's all very nuanced, and that, not to place judgment on people who've had those different experiences. And the third thing is to not speak on behalf of any other tribal people or communities. And if you are in a position to do that, to seek their permission. So those are the three things I sort of keep in my head as I do my work.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. So continuing on with lessons learned, how do you navigate power structures to bring positive impact to your communities?
I think I can talk about that because, again, as Marnie is our facilitator of CAKE, Chicago American Community Collaborative, that has been one of the great resources for our community. Andrew and I both became members of the collaborative at the same time in 2019. And it was a bit of a struggling group at that time. And we realized that we just needed to, because we were both business professionals, and we were like, well, let's get this thing going. Let's get it moving. So they didn't have their 501c3, so we were able to get a committee together. We got the 501c3 because when we were getting grant funds, they were going to our fiscal agent. And this way now we're able to keep all of our funds. And Marnie has been fantastic in helping us to get to the point where we're running our collaborative very professionally. And we have all of these 15 different organizations that's really helping us to get grants and be successful. We received our first homeless grant through the City of Chicago, City of Chicago Funders Together. We realized that when we work in collaboration, there's really nothing we can't do. We just need to set our sights on what our vision is for the future, and we all work together for that common goal.
Great. Any follow-up on that? I was going to ask for resources, but you provided one right there with CAKE and all the work you do. So that's wonderful. Okay. What is a tip or resource or phrase that you would like to impart on the audience, or maybe a phrase that you live your leadership journey by that really encompasses how you lead and navigate the world.
I have one here. So, as Ken's probably picked up, I've lived a lot of lives, and one of my lives was I was a professional mountain biker and training for the Olympic trials for the marathon. And this is applicable because this is a phrase that I use every single day of my life, and there's two of them. One of them is, what's the best you can do from here? So that means, and when I'm in the middle of a race, it could be going disastrous. And I did all this training, and you just have all that doom and gloom, just every step hurts, everything sucks. And it doesn't have to be like that. I can still take this next step can be a little better, and this next step can be a little better. So even if the cards have been stacked up against you, and what's gotten you here is maybe you're really far in the hole, what's the best you can do from here? And maybe it still is just I was going to win the race. Maybe at that point, just finish the race. In the term of the environment that we're in, maybe it's like we didn't have our 501c3, and we didn't have all these bills passed, and we didn't have this collective community. Okay, well, what's the best we can do from here? And just start taking those small, tiny steps here and there. And the other one is also another running analogy. So excuse me if you're not an athlete in the room, but this is just, I was running since I was 10. So is you always get to the mountain and then take 2 steps over. And so when you're running up a hill, you keep running at that momentum, even though you want to stop and it's not fun. But you get to the top and then you keep going 2 steps over, because the momentum is what takes you over. And I think about this in our projects that we're working on, because just because you kind of almost finished the project, you have to put it all the way to bed. You have to take those last steps. And those last steps are not usually cruising steps. You still have to, they still take as much effort. They're just giving you a little less of a fight. So those are 2 phrases. They aren't maybe as related to the Native community, but they're things that are related to my leadership journey and helping people out. I mean, probably 100 times a day. I'm certainly thinking about what's the best I can do from here.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I also would like, I'm just gonna ask one more question, then we'll open up to the audience for Q&A. But I would like to know what the future looks like for you, and what, as you're thinking ahead, what are the things that are driving you, or you're really excited about? We've talked about a lot of the successes that have happened with Cake and the organizations that you work with, and the renaming of the museum. But what are the things that you're looking forward to?
It is a big question. That is a big question. Yeah. One of the main things that I'm looking forward to, because this project has taken like 4 years, looking forward to that groundbreaking and being able to celebrate with our community. We're going to have the drums out, we're going to have our dancers out, as many of community members we can, to celebrate this after 50 years finally. And also, this is going to be brand new. Sometimes, we get an old building or something, they say, here, take this, do what you can do with it. We deserve brand new just like everybody else. So having this success is going to be, and then it's so nice to finally see some positive things coming in our, instead of always worrying about the negative and things, having this positive things going on in our community. And it really does help our youth, being able to, educating our youth and letting them know that there is a future. That really is what is going to be the key to our future, is making sure that our youth, we still struggle with depression and suicide rates in our youth. So we need to pick them up and let them know that there's a future. So showing them what we're doing really helps benefit them.
Just adding on that, I'm really excited. I've only been in this Chicago area for 7 years, and the growth that I've seen since I've been here has been like exponential. It's just been amazing to see everyone come together. And I do have a lot of younger people that work with me. It's so great to see that their worldview and their experiences are going to be completely different than previous generations who struggled with, displacement and assimilation and all of the intergenerational trauma that comes with that. So it's just really exciting to see this trajectory that the community has. And it's sort of like a nationwide trajectory for Native people. I'm really excited to see what's next. And I always think about this saying, it's related to the environment. My parents grew up on the Menominee Reservation, has the world's best sustainability and forestry practices. But everyone always says this one saying is like, you take what you need and you give back the rest. And that reference is, related to the land, but I think about that in our own work, and what we do is not doing the work and thinking about ourselves and thinking about how that can support the larger community.
I feel like this Native community in Chicago is just getting started. I mean, you are listening to two of the best leaders. We're gonna have a place to put our Native people. We're gonna have a place for them to learn and eat and like do all these amazing things. But these are just two examples of what I hope will be 100 organizations that will be members of CAKE and just continue to explore our impact and what we're working on. Not only within our community though, I want to be able to reach out to folks who want to support this community in some way. We've been very introspective for a long time, and I would say that's a few pronged. Number one is it takes a lot to be a leader, and it takes a lot to speak out for the community, and so you've got to have a lot of respect. You've got to have a lot of just knowledge in what you're going to be speaking about. So we're building that next generation of leaders. I love that her staff is all, the seventh generation is a real thing where you're thinking 7 generations ahead. And Kim's working on the next 1 or 2 right now with the folks that are at her museum. It's awesome. But keeping in mind that I want CAKE to grow with its Native organizations. I would love for it to expand. Like there's certainly organizations in Chicago that aren't members at the moment, but there's organizations across the state that I think would really benefit from a lot of the work that we're doing. And then just the outside outreach. These are the tippity top things that I think we're thinking on. Because CAKE's main mission is to take these great leaders at the table and get everyone on the same page, or at least to activate in some way, whether it's in laws, whether it's in letters, whether it's in putting together research groups on how our homeless is working, or the fact that CPS just shut down their American Indian Education Center, and that CAKE's going to be responding to that in a formal way. So it would be nothing without people like this at the table, and continuing to support these organizations and to expand out our reach outside of that.
Thank you all for sharing. I appreciate it. So now we'll turn to the audience. If there are any questions of our panelists from the audience.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
This is for, first of all, thank you so much for all your great input, everybody. I have questions specifically for Marne. Yes. Can you elaborate a little bit regarding passage of laws, like how do you do it, what are the steps, things like that?
I can navigate on the steps, but Andrew is also our director of advocacy, so he can probably give you more details on, how everything went. But we had 3 big bills that we had been working on. They got passed 2.5 years ago. And it was, I just want to throw a shout out that it was also the first time that we've got to read a land acknowledgement before a session started. So very important piece for our community. But it starts with grassroots like anything else does. What's important to our community? And we took polls and we really tried to understand what is nagging our community. And some of it just came up and jumped us and bit us in the butt, because we had a community member who was walking at Evanston High School with his feather on his cap, which is a very important piece of our culture. And he got pulled from the line and wasn't able to graduate. And so we, as CAKE, this is one of our first missions actually, as me and the driver's seat a little bit more, was we wrote a letter, and the high school responded and actually were fairly supportive, but that led to a law that said, hey, you can't do this. You can't pull people, or you can't have these kind of discrimination. So each of these things that's come up has come up for a different reason, but community first, make sure we're doing the right thing, and then sick Andrew on all the wording and the legislators. And then I think one of the most special things that we do for our community and for the legislators is every year we organize what we call Native American Summit Day down in Springfield. We take buses, we feed everyone, we schedule talks, we schedule media days, we meet with tons of legislators. I think last year we met with over 30 legislators, dropped off 60 to 70 packets to people, and just continue to build our portfolio of impact. So it is a lot of just grassroots, getting down and dirty, knocking on doors kind of work.
Thank you.
Anything else to add, Andrew? And Marnie, could you maybe talk a little bit about the other piece of legislation that passed?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, sorry, if I put it you
Yeah,
on the
you're
spot.
putting me a little bit on the spot. Actually, Kim can probably talk about the museum one. The repatriation. Do you want to speak on it? It's kind of, it affects more the area that it would be working in museums.
It's okay.
Yeah, I can touch on it. So I can't take credit for any of it. I was not involved in that process. I know the
The Gitchigami Museum was.
yeah. Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation was very involved. Andrew was spearheading a lot of this work. So if you do not know, a lot of museums throughout the country and around the world have the remains of thousands and thousands of our ancestors. Some from not very far back. The Illinois State Museum is one of them. The Field Museum is also one of them. For hundreds of years, people have been asking for them back with no recourse, no response, and so now there is. Remind me of the bill name. It's long, right?
Basically repatriation.
It would be
of
repatriating.
remains and artifacts.
Of those remains and artifacts. So it is a huge step forward in accountability for these museums and educational institutions that have those remains. So very, very grateful to see that move forward.
And I'll just highlight the third one real quick, which is in the state of Illinois, it was not required for any public school to teach Native American history until 2 years ago. 2 years ago. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but we've been around for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. So I don't know how they just skipped that part of history, but it was not required to teach Native American history. And that's what the third bill is covering. We are helping to create the curriculum from a Native American perspective, which is very important because it's, you can read about Custer's last stand from 3 different perspectives, and you're going to get 3 wildly different depictions on what actually happened. And I'll tell you, it's somewhere still in the middle there, but what you've probably learned is like 80% leaning to the wrong direction. So being able to have that voice in the schools, we've all spoke about education and 7th generation, and that's where we start is building advocates in kiddos who know nothing or about what's happening with the Native people, but now they're going to have a chance to at least learn some of the fundamental elements to our culture and history. And from our voice, gosh darn it.
That's
Yeah.
right, absolutely. Great, thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you.
I think
for
I did
sharing.
it okay. So
Yes,
you did.
Any other questions from our audience here today? Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to thank all of our panelists. It really has been my honor to sit up here and to speak with you all and learn just a sliver of, in the time that we had, learn more about your work and your leadership journeys. It's really been an honor. So I want to also thank CMS and the Native American Chamber of Commerce, along with my colleagues at DCEO, for putting this together as a celebration of Native American Heritage Month. So with that, I would be delighted to present a proclamation from the governor. Andrew, if you want to come up here, we'll do a quick photo with Andrew and the three of us. And then we'll go ahead and wrap. But thank you all so much for joining us today. Deanna, do you want to do the photo and then we'll wrap up? Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Oh, yes, of course.
Can I say one thing? Actually, I'm going to say three things. I don't think you realize how special these ladies are and what they've done. You've heard a bit of it, but Kim came into a situation 3 years ago. If you know what a going concern is from the accounting standpoint, don't know if they're going to be in business in a few months. Kim came in, took the reins, and now we're looking at budgets in 7 figures. We've had a rebranding. Absolutely amazing. Marne came into a herd of cats. And as I said, with our Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative, if you get together with Indians, two Indians in a room, you're going to have 3 opinions. And so when you talk about 15, 16 different organizations, she was able to come in and really help organize us, focus us, and to do incredible things, and to bring in resources to help. She has been responsible for bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants for our collaborative. So and then with Shelly, and these are things that don't happen overnight. As you hear, these are years and years and years of effort. And what Shelly is doing for our community with affordable housing, and how difficult it is in this particular state because we haven't had a federally recognized tribe nor trust land until just last April. Yeah. And we are so proud of that. But for Shelly and her organization, her background, to be able to have, boy, we're looking to, you said, to put that first shovel in the ground for Native Americans here, that she is so very, very special here. So all of these ladies, just incredible. And we are all, the community, so fortunate to have them here.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Okay, we'll get a quick photo, Andrew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can space too, of course. Okay. Here, you should be.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't even.
The thorn between all of these roses. Thank you for the proclamation on behalf of our community.
Thank you again, all of our panelists and Andrew for joining us today. It really is remarkable and my pleasure to speak with you all today. And thank you all for coming. Deanna, anything else before we wrap?
Thank you all so much for sharing your feedback and your wisdom with the group. We have a very humble gift for our panelists and moderator. It's actually CMS and DCO swag. So on behalf of the organizers, yes, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.